picture this, right? It is Saturday, August 22nd, 2026.
Yeah.
You are standing inside the MKM Stadium. There are, I think, 24,470 fans just packed into the stands all around you. And the atmosphere, it is absolutely deafening.
Oh, completely.
It's this, this mix of raw, expectant electricity and that very specific type of nervous energy that only really comes from a pure, unadulterated David versus Goliath clash.
Right, right.
We are talking about newly promoted Hull City taking on the absolute juggernaut that is Manchester United. And this is on the opening weekend of the Premier League season. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are just, we're skipping the warm-ups today and jumping straight into the action.
Definitely the best way to do it.
Yeah, because our mission for you today is to unpack the complete, unvarnished story of how a Hull City team were universally written off by every pundit as guaranteed relegation fodder, how they absolutely dismantled a highly confident, expensively assembled Manchester United side in a 2-0 victory that just completely ripped up the script.
Yeah. I mean, to really grasp the magnitude of what you would have witnessed in that stadium, we have to establish the staggering contrast between these two clubs, right? Like the moment they walked out of the tunnel.
Oh, yeah, the contrast was huge.
Manchester United arrived on Humberside flying incredibly high. I mean, they finished third last season under Michael Carrick. They secured Champions League qualification.
Right.
So the mood music around Old Trafford all summer had been overwhelmingly positive. They integrate these shiny new marquee signings. And the broader consensus was that Carrick had not only stabilized a historically turbulent ship, but he was quietly building a machine ready to mount a serious title challenge.
Well-oiled machine, yeah.
Exactly. Confidence wasn't just high, it was brimming. I mean, they were heavily expected to put on an opening day clinic.
And then, in the other corner, you have Hull City.
Yeah.
Which is, this is a club that had just clawed and scraped their way back to the top flight after 9 agonizing years away.
9 long years.
Yeah, 9 years that included a deeply humbling stint down in the purgatory of League One. And they didn't cruise to promotion either.
Not at all.
They got here via the hardest route possible, a gritty, just nail-biting 1-0 championship playoff final win over Middlesbrough.
Right, they really had to fight for it.
They did. They were the underdogs of the underdogs. But what fascinates me, right, is the psychology of their owner, Akunil Akali. Because he didn't shy away from those dire predictions.
No, he really leaned into them.
He did. He leaned into them completely. He openly reveled in the fact that everyone was predicting an immediate return to the championship. He essentially weaponized that lack of external pressure.
And that psychological framing is crucial. It really is. When a squad knows the entire footballing world expects them to lose, it completely removes the fear of failure.
You play with freedom.
Exactly. You step onto the pitch with absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. Manchester United, conversely, carried this immense, suffocating weight of expectation.
Because if United win 3-0, it's just another Saturday.
Right. Exactly. If they win, it's business as usual. If they draw, it's a crisis. Hull City harnessed that asymmetry just brilliantly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because psychological framing and boardroom mentality, they are fantastic for pre-match team talks, right?
Sure.
But the reality of the first whistle is a completely different beast.
Yeah.
You can have all the underdog spirit in the universe, but if your tactics are flawed, a team boasting Manchester United's technical quality they will simply pass you into oblivion.
They will tear you apart, yeah.
So how does a team expected to be completely outclassed actually take total control of this match within the first 40 minutes?
Well, it really came down to this breathtakingly audacious tactical bait and switch.
Yeah.
And this was engineered by Hull's manager, Sergej Džekirović.
Right.
And as a quick aside, he actually made history that afternoon as the Premier League's first ever Bosnian manager, which is a great story in itself.
Oh, wow. I didn't actually realize that.
Yeah, it's a cool milestone.
Yeah.
But tactically, throughout the entirety of preseason, Džekirović had Hull playing with a standard back four. Every single friendly match, every leaked training clip, every scouting report that Manchester United's backroom staff meticulously analyzed would have explicitly detailed a 4-man defensive line.
So United thought they knew exactly what they were walking into.
Exactly. But when the official team sheets dropped an hour before kickoff, Džekirović had just ripped up the script. He rolled out a highly specialized 5-4-1 formation.
I mean, that is a colossal gamble for an opening day fixture.
Massive.
You spend, what, 6 weeks of preseason building muscle memory in one specific system, drilling the spacing, the pressing triggers, the defensive rotations, and then on the biggest stage imaginable, you completely switch the geometry of the pitch.
Yep.
I have to imagine the United analysts in the stands were frantically calling down to the dugout when they saw that shape.
They almost certainly were, yeah, because a 5-4-1 completely alters how you have to attack.
Right.
Let's break down the mechanics of why Jakirovic did this. In a standard back four, when an opposition winger attacks down the flank, your fullback has to step out to engage him.
Yeah.
And that movement inherently creates a gap, like a channel between the fullback and the center back.
Yeah.
Top-tier teams like Manchester United exploit those exact gaps using rapid, intricate passing. But by deploying a back five, Hull City fundamentally changed the math.
Okay, how so?
Well, they had 3 central defenders staying incredibly compact, meaning even when a wingback stepped up to press, there were still 2 center backs and a sweeper securely plugging those dangerous half spaces.
Ah, so they just crowded out the danger zones.
Exactly. They sacrificed high pressing to ensure they had impenetrable density in their own penalty area. They essentially told United, you can have the ball in the middle third all afternoon, but the moment you try to enter our penalty box, you are running into a human barricade.
But, I mean, if Manchester United could plainly see Hull sitting deep in that 5-4-1, why were they so vulnerable? Because common football logic dictates that if you invite a team with United's resources to attack you, they will eventually pick the lock. But looking at how the first half unfolded, United's defensive structure didn't look like a team capable of dictating play at all.
No, it didn't.
I'd compare their defensive setup to, like, a poorly designed, over-engineered dam. On paper, it looks like a multi-million-pound marvel of modern engineering, right?
Right.
Capable of holding back massive volumes of water if the pressure is spread out evenly. But the moment Hull applied a sharp, concentrated physical strike directly to a structural weak point, specifically a set piece in this case, the entire dam just fractured and collapsed.
That dam analogy perfectly captures the structural failure we witnessed. I mean, United's vulnerability wasn't exposed by Hull carving them open with these 20-pass Guardiola-esque sequences.
No.
It was exposed by raw, unapologetic physicality and meticulous set-piece organization. Jakirovic recognized that for all of United's technical brilliance on the ball, they possessed a glaring structural softness when defending dead ball situations.
Yeah.
They struggled with aerial duels. They struggled with tracking runners in crowded spaces. Hull identified that crack in the dam, and they just hammered it relentlessly, which, brings us to the 17th minute.
Oh, man, the opening goal, the moment the roof effectively blew off the MKM Stadium.
It was huge.
Let's break down the sheer chaos of Semi Ajar's opener because it felt less like a coordinated tactical strike and more like a localized earthquake in the 6-yard box.
It did. But that chaos was entirely by design. Hull wins the set piece in a dangerous area. The delivery is whipped into the mixer, and Ole McBurney, who we should note was an absolute menace all afternoon.
Oh, he played the thankless role of a lone striker brilliantly.
He really did. So McBurney attacked the ball with total conviction and gets an incredibly powerful header on target.
And United's goalkeeper, Sonny Lemons, actually makes a phenomenal initial save there.
It was a great save.
He reacts instantly. He tips McBurney's header onto the post. But here is where that structural flaw in United's defense is exposed. Because after the initial save, the United defenders are caught completely flat-footed.
Yeah, they just froze.
They are ball watching. And the first person to react to the rebound isn't a United player clearing their lines. It's Hull's center back, Semi Ajayi, who just pokes the ball home from point-blank range, 1-0 to Hull.
And the instinct and anticipation from Ajayi there is fantastic. And, there is a deeply compelling personal narrative here, too.
Oh.
Just last summer, Ajayi was released by West Bromwich Albion down in the Championship after reportedly refusing to take a pay cut. He was essentially cast aside.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And now here he is scoring the opening goal of a Premier League season against Manchester United. It is a phenomenal story of professional redemption.
I love that aspect of it. And there is a genuinely hilarious, almost surreal detail that emerged from the immediate aftermath of that goal. Ajayi actually had no idea he was the one who scored it.
It's true. He openly admitted it to the press after the final whistle. The box was so congested and the sequence happened so fast that his brain didn't quite process the final touch.
Yeah, he said he was running off, like aggressively hugging McBurney, fully celebrating what he thought was his teammate's goal.
Right.
And in the middle of this massive dog pile, The Hull captain, Louis Coyle, grabs Ajayi by the shoulders and asks, did you score?
Yeah.
And Ajayi just looks back at him in the middle of the pandemonium and says, I think so. It perfectly encapsulates the sheer, unadulterated chaos of a set-piece scramble.
It really does.
But beyond the comedy, you have to place this moment in its proper historical context for the thousands of fans in that stadium.
Absolutely. Because this was not just a goal, it was a psychological exorcism.
Yeah.
You have to remember that this was Hull City's first Premier League goal since May of 2017.
Right.
And who scored their last top-flight goal? It was Sam Klukas. And it happened in the match where Hull were utterly humiliated, beaten 7-1 by Tottenham Hotspur.
So for 9 agonizing years, a 7-1 thrashing was the lingering, traumatic memory of Premier League football for that fan base.
Exactly.
That was the aftertaste. When Ajayi's goal crossed the line, it didn't just give them a 1-0 lead against Manchester United. It instantly vaporized nearly a decade of ghosts. It completely shifted the emotional temperature of the building from nervous hope to absolute belief.
Huge momentum shift.
But even with that lead, conventional wisdom suggests that a team like Manchester United will simply absorb the blow, wake up, and turn the screw. You expect the giant to get angry.
Right, you wait for the response.
Instead, before halftime, we witnessed the 38th minute dagger. And the second goal is a masterpiece of economic contrast. It highlights exactly how these two clubs operate on totally different planets.
It truly is a microcosm of the modern footballing economy. Let's look at the mechanics and the personnel involved in this second goal. So Hull wins another free kick.
And standing over the ball is Regan Slater. Now, if you track Slater's career path, Hull initially brought him in on loan from Sheffield United while they were battling it out in League One.
Right.
They eventually secured him on a permanent transfer for a reported fee of £50,000. 50 grand.
Yeah, unbelievable.
In the inflated, hyper-capitalist context of Premier League football, £50,000 is practically a rounding error. It's the cost of a luxury team dinner for these guys.
It's an unimaginably small sum when you are sharing a pitch with players earning triple that amount in a single week.
Right. So the £50,000 bargain signing steps up and whips in an absolutely devastating, pinpoint, defense-splitting free kick. And soaring through the air to meet it is Nobel Mendy.
Making his Premier League debut.
Making his debut. A player who represents the total opposite end of Hull's financial spectrum.
Exactly.
He is a club record summer signing brought in from Rayo Vallecano in Spain, costing upwards of £20 million. He rises higher than anyone in a red shirt and violently powers a header past Lamens. 2-0. You have the 50 grand League One bargain providing the perfect assist for the £20 million international record signing.
It's just a beautiful contrast.
It is a triumph of diverse scouting and flawless execution on the training ground, but crucially, it once again bypassed United's entire defensive apparatus with embarrassing ease.
And what's fascinating here is that this second goal definitively proves the first wasn't a fluke.
No, not at all.
It wasn't a lucky bounce or a random scramble. It was a systemic, calculated exposure of Manchester United's complete inability to deal with aerial threats. And the most damning part,
What's that?
Manchester United knew it was coming. Bruno Fernandes, their captain, faced the media after the game and openly admitted that this squad was fully briefed that set pieces would be Hull's primary weapon.
Wow.
Yeah, they had the scouting reports. They knew the danger. Yet when Mendy made his run, the marking was virtually non-existent.
That begs the question of defensive organization, though. Like, are they using a zonal marking system that inherently leaves gaps? Or is it a failure of individual man marking, where a defender just loses his assignment?
From watching it, it appeared to be a catastrophic breakdown in zonal marking.
Okay.
In a zonal system, defenders guard specific areas of space, rather than tracking individual players. The theory is that you protect the most dangerous zones.
Right. Makes sense in theory.
But the flaw is that attacking players can get a running start and attack the ball with full momentum, while the zonal defenders are often standing flat-footed.
Sitting ducks.
Exactly. Djukirovic's 5-4-1 wasn't just a defensive tool. It allowed him to stack the pitch with tall, physically imposing center backs. When Hull won a dead ball situation, they simply flooded the United box with massive physical presence.
They just overwhelmed them.
Yep. They overloaded the zones, they attacked the ball with aggression, and United's static defensive structure had absolutely no kinetic response.
It is genuinely mind-boggling. You know an opponent's exact strategy. They practically telegraph that they are going to use set pieces to hurt you, and you still collapse.
Yeah.
Which provides the perfect pivot to the second major theme of this match. Because Hull City did not build this 2-0 lead by dominating the football, they built it on ruthless clinical efficiency.
Very true.
So we need to look at Manchester United's performance in possession. Why was a team that saw so much of the ball completely toothless?
Because the statistics from this match paint a portrait of an elaborate illusion. It was the absolute illusion of control.
I want to lay out these raw numbers for you, the listener, because if you didn't watch the game and only looked at the spreadsheet, you would be utterly confused.
You really would.
You would bet your life savings that Manchester United won this game in a blowout. United held 71.6% possession. They attempted 654 passes, absolutely dwarfing Hull's 252.
That is a massive discrepancy.
Massive. They registered 21 shots to Hull's 8. And if we look at the advanced analytics, United generated an expected goals, or XG, of 1.81 compared to Hull's 1.26. And yet, United walked away with 0 goals.
And for listeners who might not obsess over modern analytics, expected goals, or XG, is essentially a metric that evaluates the quality of a scoring chance.
Right.
It calculates the probability of a specific shot resulting in a goal based on historical data. So factoring in distance, angle, and the type of assist.
So it's about shot quality.
Exactly. A penalty kick, for example, has an XG of roughly 0.76, meaning it goes in 76% of the time.
So if United amassed a total XG of 1.81 across 21 shots, it tells us they were taking a massive volume of low-quality, low-probability shots.
Bingo.
They weren't missing tap-ins. They were firing from 25 yards out through a forest of defenders.
Precisely. It is the definition of a hollow performance.
Yeah.
They monopolized the football, but they never actually controlled the geography of the game that mattered.
I think the best way to visualize United's performance is to imagine a multi-million-pound state-of-the-art sports car. The engine is roaring, the exhaust is popping, it looks incredibly intimidating, but the transmission is completely stripped. You can sit there and rev the engine to 8,000 RPM all afternoon, burning through incredibly expensive fuel, making an absolute racket. But because the transmission isn't connecting to the wheels, you aren't moving an inch forward.
That's brilliant.
You have all the underlying power in the world, but 0 forward momentum. All of United's possession was happening in non-threatening areas.
That transmission analogy is spot on. Hull's 5-4-1 mid-block meant the center of the pitch was hopelessly congested.
Yeah.
United center backs could leisurely pass the ball horizontally to each other for 90 minutes, and they frequently did. But the millisecond they attempted to shift gears and pass vertically into the midfield to break the lines, they hit a brick wall.
Just nowhere to go.
Exactly. And the failure to penetrate that structure falls squarely on the shoulders of United's newly assembled midfield pivot.
We have to talk about the midfield mismatch because this was the specific area of the pitch where United heavily invested during the summer.
Right.
They brought in Yuri Tielemans and Andre Santos to act as the metronomes, to dictate the tempo and thread those crucial line-breaking passes. And what actually happened when the whistle blew?
They were comprehensively swallowed whole. And it wasn't because Hull's midfield possessed superior technical finesse.
No.
It was because players like Regan Slater and Mohamed Baloumi executed a flawless, physically exhausting pressing trap.
Okay, walk me through that trap.
Well, Hull didn't press United center backs high up the pitch. They let them have the ball. But the moment a pass was played into Tielemans or Santos in the central third, that was the trigger.
The trap snaps shut.
Exactly. 2 or 3 Hull players would instantly collapse the pocket, snapping at their ankles, cutting off the passing lanes, and forcing them to receive the ball under immense physical duress.
And the post-match reviews of their performances from the punditry class were brutally unforgiving.
Oh, they were scathing.
The recurring theme was that Tielemans and Santos looked genuinely shocked by the ferocity of the encounter. The speed of the transitions, the aggression of Hull's midfield engagements, it seemed to entirely paralyze their decision-making.
It really did.
And you know things have gone catastrophically wrong when a manager is forced into a humiliating double substitution. Carrick had seen enough. He hooked both of his marquee summer midfield signings with over 20 minutes left on the clock.
It's a staggering indictment of their inability to adapt to the grueling physical reality of a Premier League away fixture against a motivated, newly promoted side.
Yeah.
But the tactical dysfunction wasn't isolated to the new arrivals. The systemic issues were deeply ingrained. Listen to the post-match comments from their captain, Bruno Fernandes. His assessment of the tactical breakdown is incredibly revealing.
Yeah, he looked completely exasperated in the mixed zone, and he explicitly said, same mistakes as we did last season. Every away game, we give too much of the ball to them.
Which is wild.
Now, on the surface, that quote sounds logically impossible. How can a team that legally commands 71.6% of the possession claim that they gave the opposition too much of the ball? It's a paradox.
It sounds contradictory if you only view possession as a raw numerical value. But Fernandes is speaking the language of momentum and initiative.
Okay, and unpack that.
When he says they gave Hull the ball, he means they surrendered the tempo of the game. Because United's passing was so slow, lateral, and predictable, they never forced Hull to scramble.
They never stretched them.
Right, they never pulled Hull's defensive shape out of alignment. By passing the ball passively in front of Hull's defensive block, United were playing exactly the tune Djurkiewicz wanted to hear.
Playing into their hands.
Exactly. They allowed Hull to dictate exactly where the game was played, in the safe, non-lethal areas of the pitch.
So having 70% possession without vertical intent is essentially just a very exhausting way of defending for the other team.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
You are keeping the ball warm while the opponent maintains their structural integrity and catches their breath. And when you go into the halftime interval trailing 2-0, passivity is a tactical death sentence.
You have to change it up.
You have to find a way to inject venom into the attack. Which brings us to Michael Carrick's dilemma in the dressing room. Down 2 goals, staring down the barrel of a humiliating opening day disaster, he has to pull a lever. He has to change the geometry of the game.
Right.
And he does. At halftime, he brings on Marcus Rashford.
And this is a monumental substitution, not just for the immediate context of this match, but for the entire narrative arc of Manchester United's season.
The context here is heavy. This wasn't a standard tactical tweak. This was Marcus Rashford stepping onto the pitch for his boyhood club in a competitive fixture for the first time in 618 days.
It had been a long time.
He had been effectively exiled, right? Sent away on a long loan spell to Barcelona. And now, in a moment of acute crisis, Carrick turns to the prodigal son and asks him to salvage the afternoon. So, looking at the second half, did the injection of Rashford fix the broken transmission?
The short answer is no, but the nuance is important. When Rashford crossed the white line, you immediately felt a shift in kinetic energy.
Yeah, the crowd definitely felt it.
He introduced genuine, frightening pace, something United severely lacked in a stagnant first half. He immediately identified himself as the primary threat, constantly isolating the Hull wingbacks, driving down the left flank, and trying to stretch the pitch vertically.
Trying to make something happen.
He was furiously revving that sports car engine.
I noticed that. He was beating his man, he was getting to the byline, but pace is only valuable if there is space to exploit.
Exactly.
And because Hull was sitting so deep in that 5-4-1 low block, the space behind the defensive line simply didn't exist. Rashford would accelerate, beat his marker, fire a low cross into the penalty area, and, well, nothing.
Nothing there.
The attacking players arriving in the box were entirely smothered by Hull's towering center back.
Exactly the issue. You can beat the first man, but if your crosses are inevitably met by the forehead of John Egan or Semi IJ, the pace is neutralized. Which brings us to the defining characteristic of the second half, the Hull wall.
Let's deeply analyze this defensive resilience, because defending in a low block for 45 straight minutes requires an incredible amount of mental stamina.
It's exhausting mentally.
It is so easy to lose concentration for a split second, and against elite opposition, a split second is fatal. We have to start with the last line of defense, Hull's Greek debutant goalkeeper, Konstantinos Tsilakis.
Yeah.
Now, again, looking at the spreadsheet, United had 21 shots. You might assume Tsilakis was diving around like a gymnast, making heroic, desperate saves every 3 minutes. But the reality of his performance was much more controlled, wasn't it?
It was incredibly measured, and that is a massive testament to the 5 men operating directly in front of him. A vast majority of United's 21 shots were low-percentage efforts from distance. They were either easily blocked by the dense defensive line or sailed harmlessly into the stands.
So he was largely untested for long stretches.
Tsilakis was highly protected, yeah. However, the mark of a truly elite shot stopper in a game like this is maintaining total psychological focus when you have had very little to do.
That's the hard part.
Right. When you are standing in the cold for 20 minutes without touching the ball, and suddenly a world-class striker breaks through, can you rely on your reflexes?
And he proved he absolutely could. He made 5 critical saves throughout the match, but there is one specific moment late in the second half that stands out as the ultimate turning point.
Oh, the chance for Brian Mbeumo.
That's the one.
It was the singular moment where United's transmission finally clicked into gear. Matthias Cunha receives the ball in a tight pocket of space, turns, and threads, an absolutely sublime defense-splitting three-ball.
Just a beautiful pass.
It dissects the whole back line, and Mbeumo is suddenly accelerating in on goal with only the keeper to beat. It is a textbook high XG opportunity.
If Mbeumo slots that home, it's 2-1. The stadium tightens up. The momentum violently swings in United's favor, and we are looking at 10 minutes of absolute agonizing siege warfare.
It changes everything.
But Mbeumo strikes it cleanly, and Salakis explodes off his line, making a sprawling, brilliant diving stop to parry the ball away. He shuts the door. He denies the narrative shift.
And the defense in front of him deserves immense credit for not allowing those scenarios to become a regular occurrence. You listen to Louis Coyle, the Hull captain, speaking after the match, and he exuded a bizarre calmness.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he articulated that the squad knew exactly how to operate within a low block. This wasn't frantic, panic-stricken defending. It was meticulously coordinated.
They were in their element.
They understood their spacing perfectly. They communicated flawlessly on when to step out to engage a shooter and when to drop off and absorb the cross.
They genuinely seemed to relish the physical combat of it. Every single time United looped a desperate cross into the box, it felt like a whole player was magnetically drawn to the ball, heading it clear with absolute authority.
They dominated the air.
By the final whistle, Hull City had registered 54 defensive clearances. Manchester United registered 16.
Wow.
It paints a picture of a relentless siege, but a siege where the defenders on the castle walls were grinning, fully confident that the gates were never going to break.
I love that image.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because as the clock ticks past the 80th minute and the frustration mounts, you witness the sophisticated tactical plan of Manchester United entirely disintegrate into chaotic Sunday League desperation. We have to discuss the visual of Harry Maguire.
It is the ultimate tactical white flag.
Think about the optics of this, right? You represent one of the wealthiest football institutions on the planet. You have spent hundreds of millions of pounds assembling an elite stable of attacking talent. You have a dynamic Brazilian forward in Matthias Cunha on the pitch. You have a highly rated European striker in Benjamin Sesko on the pitch. You've introduced a brilliant, young, creative playmaker in Shea Lacey.
So much talent.
You have all these delicate, highly calibrated offensive instruments at your disposal. And what is your grand tactical master plan to salvage a result in the final 10 minutes?
Throw the big man up top.
You instruct your giant, lumbering defensive center back, Harry Maguire, to jog up the pitch, plant himself as a makeshift center forward, and you instruct your midfield to just start aimlessly launching 60-yard long balls at his head in the desperate hope that a secondary ball drops kindly.
It is a devastating indictment of their tactical flexibility. When plan A, monopolizing the ball and attempting to slowly probe the perimeter, when that failed to yield a breakthrough, there was no sophisticated pre-rehearsed plan B.
Nothing to fall back on.
The structural integrity of the team dissolved. Pumping long balls to a central defender against a Hull City backline that had literally spent the last 80 minutes comfortably heading away crosses for fun was an exercise in pure futility.
It really was.
Maguire did manage to get on the end of a couple of hopeful knockdowns, managing a few scuff shots, but they threatened absolutely no one.
It transitions from being a tactical battle to something approaching tragicomedy. It is the exact moment you realize the system hasn't just failed, it has been completely abandoned.
Yeah.
And then, mercifully for United, the referee blows the final whistle. The match is over. 2-0. We transition from the tactical reality on the pitch to the immense immediate fallout of the result. Because a scoreline like this on the opening weekend doesn't just create headlines, it creates tectonic shifts.
Big shifts, yeah.
We need to analyze the historical weight of what just happened, the stark contrast in the stadium atmosphere, and what this signals for the respective managers facing the media glare. Let's start with the history books, because records were shattered.
It is impossible to overstate how historically anomalous this defeat is for Manchester United. Prior to this match, United had played a newly promoted team on the opening day of a top-flight season 12 times in their history.
Okay.
They had won 9 of those encounters and drawn 3. They had never, ever lost. On the 13th attempt in 2026, Hull City finally broke a streak that spanned generations.
And if you view it through the lens of Hull City's history, the accomplishment is equally staggering. This 2-0 result marked their first league victory over Manchester United since 1974.
1974, that is wild.
1974, they were competing in the old second division when that happened. You have entire generations of Hull City supporters, grandfathers, fathers, sons, who have lived their entire lives never having witnessed their club defeat Manchester United in a league fixture.
When you contextualize it with that history, you can begin to imagine the visceral explosion of emotion inside the MPM Stadium at the final whistle.
Oh, it must have been a transcendent experience. Just picture the scene. The referee blows the whistle. The stadium doesn't just cheer, it completely erupts in a sheer delirium. The PA announcer immediately cranks the volume and starts blasting status quos, rockin' all over the world.
Channeling the pure, unadulterated joy of Live Aid in 1985.
Exactly that vibe. It's this massive collective catharsis. You have fans who spent the summer terrified of relegation, suddenly, ironically chanting that they're going to win the league. You have the owner, Akun Ilakali, absolutely beaming in the director's box, completely vindicated in his underdog mentality.
He must have been so smug.
Oh, without a doubt, it is absolute dreamland. But the beauty of football is the duality of the stadium. While 3/4 of the ground is vibrating with joy, you pan over to the away end, to the traveling Manchester United supporters.
It's a very different vibe.
They have just endured a deeply frustrating, hollow performance. And as if the universe decided they hadn't suffered enough, rumors start filtering through the away concourse that the trains back to Manchester have been abruptly canceled.
It is the ultimate theatrical misery of the away fan experience.
It is brutal. And of course, in the hyper-tribal world of English football, the Hull faithful immediately get wind of the travel chaos. And what is their response? Do they offer sympathy?
Of course not.
Absolutely not. They start gleefully serenading the stranded United fans at the top of their lungs with chants of, "You're going home in a taxi." It is ruthless, hilarious, and it perfectly encapsulates the biting humor of terrace culture.
But while the fans are exchanging banter, that brutal reality immediately shifts to the press conference rooms. Because the leadership structures of both these football clubs are instantly thrust under intense, blinding scrutiny, albeit for drastically different reasons.
Yeah.
We have to analyze the stark contrast in how the two managers navigated the post-match autopsy.
Let's start with Michael Carrick. He walks into the press room, the cameras are flashing, the journalists are sharpening their knives, and he completely refuses to hit the panic button.
Yeah.
He delivers this incredibly measured, almost stoic interview.
He kept his cool.
He looks the reporters in the eye and says, "One game doesn't change the direction of everything. It doesn't change the direction of the football club." He emphasizes the need to stay inside the bubble, to block out the external noise, to remain calm, and to focus entirely on the tactical preparations for next week.
On a purely managerial level, that is the textbook response.
Yeah.
You cannot stand in front of a microphone after game one of a grueling 38-game campaign and declare that the sky is falling.
Right.
You have a duty to project stability, to absorb the pressure, and to protect the psychology of your players.
Sure.
But this raises an important question, right? Is Carrick's calm, measured demeanor the sign of a manager who is quietly in control, someone who deeply understands and trusts his long-term process? Or is it a dangerous, potentially fatal denial of a fundamentally broken tactical system?
It's a brilliant question because the fans and the media ecosystem surrounding the club are absolutely not matching his calm energy. They are operating in a completely different reality.
They have bypassed concern and gone straight to a full-blown meltdown. The post-match radio phone-ins are chaotic. The online fan forums are toxic. You have supporters genuinely typing out demands for Carrick out by Christmas after a single 90-minute match.
That's crazy fast.
It sounds wildly reactionary, but you have to understand the context. The anger isn't just about losing 3 points. It's fueled by the manner of the defeat. If United had battered the door down, hit the post 4 times, and lost to a lucky 90th-minute deflection, the fans would accept it as a bad day at the office.
Sure, that happens.
But this wasn't bad luck. This was a systemic structural failure against a newly promoted team. The fan base is instantly mobilized, begging the Ineos ownership group to intervene. They are pleading for emergency defensive reinforcements, demanding a new left back and a dominant center back before the transfer window slams shut in just 10 days. The temperature around the club went from room temperature to boiling point in 2 hours.
And meanwhile, just a few doors down the corridor, Sergej Zakirovic is dealing with the exact opposite problem. He is likely trying to figure out how to keep his players' feet firmly planted on the earth. He just masterminded an absolute tactical clinic.
He really did.
He took a disparate squad built from championship castoffs, 50,000-pound bargain buys, and unproven debutantes, and he forged them into a cohesive, impenetrable, highly organized unit.
He definitively proved that supreme tactical organization, relentless communication, and collective desire can, on any given Saturday afternoon, completely nullify hundreds of millions of pounds worth of individual talent.
So as we wrap up, what does this all mean for you, the listener, tracking the Premier League this year? Let's recap this incredible narrative arc. We watched Hull City execute a flawless tactical bait and switch, deploying a stifling 5-4-1 that completely neutralized the opposition.
Yeah.
We watched Manchester United generate historically hollow possession, passing the ball into oblivion without ever truly threatening to score. We watched a 50,000-pound signing provide the vital assist for a record debutant. Such a great story.
And we witnessed a 2-0 result that completely shatters the expected narrative of the new season, sending one club into absolute dreamland and plunging another into an immediate existential crisis.
And that leads to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over as you watch the rest of the football season unfold and as you read the relentless transfer rumors. We just watched a Manchester United team assembled for astronomical sums of money, completely paralyzed by a 50,000-pound midfielder and a well-drilled back five.
Yeah.
It begs the question, has modern football's total obsession with individual superstar metrics like the underlying XG, the isolated passing completion rates, the heat maps of a single player, has that blinded the top clubs to the ancient, unbeatable magic of pure collective grit?
It's a fascinating paradigm to consider. When you look at the raw data and the financial spreadsheet, United should win this game 10 times out of 10. But a spreadsheet cannot measure hunger, and an algorithm cannot quantify the willingness of a defender to throw his body in front of a shot. Exactly. It makes you wonder, can you actually buy a team with all the unspoken cohesion, communication, and shared sacrifice that word implies? Or, in this era of mega transfers and isolated analytics, can you only buy a collection of expensive players and simply pray that they figure out how to play together when they cross the white line?
Right.
Because on Saturday afternoon at the MKM Stadium, a true team comfortably dismantled a collection of players.
And suddenly, that comfortable expectation of a natural order, that idea that football is a clean, predictable equation where the most money guarantees the win, well, it's completely shattered. The tactical landscape of this Premier League season just got wonderfully, beautifully unpredictable.
It sure did.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives you see on the pitch. Keep looking beyond the hollow possession stats, and we will see you next time.